Division in families is really nothing new, at least last time I checked. So it seems kind of strange that Jesus talks about bringing something that wasn't already there. I haven't come to bring peace, but division. But division is already there. We're aware of it in our own families, in our own communities. How is it, though, that this fire that Jesus is eager to spread on the earth is going to bring a different kind of division? Well, maybe the first reading can help us understand a little bit better. Because in the first reading, Paul continues to speak about offering ourselves as slaves either to lawlessness and unrighteousness or as slaves to God. It's a very challenging image that we've heard in the readings these last several days. St. Paul tells us that we're going to be slaves to whatever we give our hearts over to. We're going to make ourselves under the dominion either of just the passing movements in our hearts, or we can make ourselves live under the dominion of those greater aspirations, the movements of God's Spirit in our hearts. The fact is, we end up serving something. We end up seeking and pursuing something. What is it we will pursue? If we pursue resentment, bitterness, jealousy, envy, and we let those movements in our hearts shape and form our words, our thoughts, our actions, well, that's the kind of division that's already present. Father against son, daughter against mother, and in-laws against in-laws. That's nothing new. But Jesus says, I've come to bring a fire, and I'm eager for it to be inflamed on the whole earth. Imagine if that fire of God's love was burning brightly in your heart. You might deal differently with your parents, your siblings, your friends, your in-laws, with your neighbor in every form. And that might bring a different kind of division, because you might speak and act quite differently if that fire of God's love is alive in you. It's not that you're seeking to do anyone harm. In fact, you're seeking to do their greatest good. Imagine someone who is living a very disordered life, someone who's dealing with an addiction or dealing with some great wound in their heart, in their lives. That can tear a family apart. Then someone comes along who tries to do an intervention. They're not going to be very popular. But they're reaching out to call back to wholeness and to healing someone who's in the grips of some great evil. That's kind of this fire that Jesus wants to burn in our hearts. A fire of love that isn't going to give up on someone who's wandering and straying, or someone who has hurt us, or someone whom we've hurt, but a fire that's going to continually reach out. It may bring a different kind of division. We might be unpopular. But if that fire can reach out and enter into the heart now of someone else, now a new family, a new community is formed. That's what we're called to be as Christians. This new family, a fire with the love of God. The founder of our community, Father Bruno Lanteri, spoke about that. One of his little writings was just fire, fire, fire. I want this fire to be alive in my heart so I can bring it out into the world and not be worried about what anyone else is going to say or do or think about me. That's the division that Jesus brings. Because someone who doesn't want that fire in their hearts is going to have a hard time maybe embracing someone where that fire is really burning. But that fire has a very gentle way of entering in and transforming our hearts. As I said, St. Paul speaks in the letter to the Romans about this slavery to lawlessness or slavery to righteousness. And that language is caught up also in the practice of consecration to Our Lady. St. Louis de Montfort, in his True Devotions, speaks about that. I want to be a slave of Mary, because Mary's the one who's going to lead me most surely to Jesus, her Son. She's going to help me to do whatever He tells me and not be a slave to all of these other messages or movements. Brothers and sisters, St. Paul tells us, just as you presented parts of your bodies as slaves to impurity, now present them as slaves to righteousness for sanctification. It may bring division. People might not like the new you. But if that newness comes from Christ, well, then His fire can really burn in your heart, and that fire will become a flame in the hearts of others. Maybe let's pray today at this Mass for those who live in very divided, conflicted families. Let's pray for reconciliation and healing. Not a false reconciliation that just pretends nothing is wrong, but that honest and true reconciliation. Here in this Eucharist, Jesus Christ is our reconciliation, our peace. He makes enemies one, reconciling them in His flesh. Let's bring to the altar today all of those divided relationships among us. Let's pray that the fire of God's love can transform us and bring us away from the old divisions into this new family of grace, a family on fire with the love of God, which we receive in this Eucharist, that fire that the Lord so earnestly desires to burn in every heart.